Hello, it's Jamie from Devon Sewing, and in front of us we've got the Singer 14SH754 overlocker, commonly known as the Lidl's overlocker in the UK. These are sold quite frequently by the superstore Lidl at a really good price, and as a consequence many sewers go out and buy them. The problem being lots of people buy them and don't really know what they're doing or how to set them up, and you're constantly reading of problems and errors, and quite often people just give up using one. So I've decided to do a series of tutorials to run you through the key parts of the machine, how to set it up, the various stitches it will do, and hopefully help a few people out who have gone and bought one, or if you're looking to buy one, you should be well and truly set. So as I've said, these are pretty cheap machines. However, they come with a 3-year warranty, and it's quite an underrated overlocker. It has quite a few features, such as a blade to cut and finish the edges of your fabric, differential feed to allow you to gather or stretch fabric. It will do 2, 3 and 4 thread overlocking. You can do flat lock seams. So it's actually a more impressive machine than it looks. It's also very light and very portable, which is another bonus. So if we take a quick look at what we have, if we spin it round to the back, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4 positions to put your thread on, and also an extendable thread guide. The machine should have come with these little plastic inserts which sit inside your thread cone, allowing the thread cone to sit centrally onto the spindles at the back. If you don't put them in, what will happen? Your thread will rattle around and it's not very nice. On the right hand side of the machine we've got our standard balance wheel like you'd find on a normal sewing machine. Obviously there's an arrow on there, always turn it anti-clockwise towards you to lift the needles up and down. Above it you have a dial for your stitch length, in other words 4 being the widest stitch, and there's an F for fine, so the stitches are very close together. I'll set mine at between 2 and 3. Below you have a sliding mechanism, and this is for the differential feed. You can control how the feed dogs work, which I'll do in another tutorial. I'm going to set this at 1, so it's in the middle, and that's the standard straight stitch. On the front we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 dials for the tension of the 4 threads. Obviously the machine can be used with 2 threads and 3 threads, but again that will be discussed in another tutorial. We have a cutting blade which trims the fabric as you're overlocking, and if we slide the front cover away, this blade can actually be rotated out of the way so as not to cut the fabric, and I'm going to leave it in this position for now while we thread the machine up. Just in front of the presser foot you'll see markings 3.5R and 4.5. That's so you can adjust the cutting width by using there's a black little knob that you can rotate. Again, we'll do that in another tutorial, along with a rolled hem facility. There's a little slider. If you pull it back, that's for doing rolled hems, and push it forward for doing straight stitches. So this tutorial really is covering the basics, and we'll get the machine threaded up correctly. So hopefully for those of you that have got one and are not sure or having problems, this should sort out a lot of issues. Flipping it round to the back, as I said, we have these cone adapters. I'm going to place them into my overlocking threads and centre, and I'm going to set this up for 4 thread overlocking. Okay, so we have our 4 threads. So now we can take each thread in turn and drop it through the guide at the top. Make sure it's fully extended. You want the thread to go from the back of the machine to the front, and make sure no thread gets caught anywhere else. So just drop them through. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now we come to the first sort of stumbling block. At the top of the machine, each thread has to go through the little metal guides, and I've seen them threaded in all manner of different ways. It's actually really simple to do, but so many people get it wrong. So I'm working from the back of the machine at the moment, just to make that clear, and I've taken the free end of my thread, and I'm going to hold the free end to the left. Obviously if you're working from the front, the free end will go to the right, and you literally slide it under the metal tongue and pull it up. You'll hear it click into place. Okay, the free end can then fall neatly down into this channel towards the tension discs. Repeat that for all the other threads that you're using. The next challenge we have is actually getting our threads through these tension discs correctly, and I know this causes a huge problem for so many people, even myself. I've messed it up. So it's very important that we get the threads correctly placed between the actual tension discs, so that the correct amount of tension is applied to the thread as we overlock. If we don't, it just won't work. The overlock thread will go all over the place. Now, I have my own preference of doing this, and I always put the presser foot down. Okay, people talk about setting these to 0 before you do it and all sorts of things. I always, as it's set on 3 here, leave it set on a number, put the presser foot down, which then squeezes the tension discs. Okay. When we then take our thread, I hold the free end and drop it down between the tension discs and give it a tug, holding the back. You'll feel it go between the metal discs, and to test you can give it a pull and you'll feel that it's being held tightly. A really easy mistake is to actually put the thread between the plastic disc and the tension disc, okay, which means you have no tension there. It will make no difference where you put that wheel. The tension will be 0. Okay, so just double check it goes between the metal discs and clicks into place. The next important step is to make sure that we thread this machine in the correct order. You can't just go from left to right and put your thread through, because I can guarantee you it won't work. Most overlockers are the same, and certainly for this model we start here with the red thread, which is the upper looper. We'll then move on to the yellow, which is the lower looper. We'll then go across to the green, which is for our right hand needle, and then finish on the blue, which is our left hand needle. So we'll open the front and we'll start with the red upper looper. So we'll begin with the red thread, and I've actually changed the thread to red, and this is for the upper looper. Making sure that it's engaged fully into the tension discs, we come down this channel and there's a little metal bracket. Make sure it goes around the bracket. Everything is marked on the inside, so we're following this red line, which is our upper looper, and also the points where the thread have to go are marked and they're colour coded. So we're on red, we're going to follow these red dots. From our bracket we come straight down and there's another little bracket. So we take our thread and we put it under that bracket, like so. From this from this bottom bracket we then come across to this arm, and we have to actually locate the thread into the guide and snap it into place so it sits in there. From this point we then come straight up to the next guide and again snap it into place. This is where your tweezers come in. From this point we're going to take the end of the thread into our upper looper, and this is this arm with the big hole at the end. We are going to place the thread through the small hole, and if I just move you can see the hole at the end. Okay, we're going to take that thread and pass it through the small hole. Take the thread out of the back and place it between the lower looper, which is this long arm here. It's quite important. We don't really want it sitting in front because that can cause problems. We certainly don't want it sitting over the top. It needs to sit nicely between. Finally, we're going to take this upper looper thread and we're going to pass it out the back of the machine, making sure it doesn't get caught anywhere. And underneath is a little guide on the presser foot. And give yourself quite a good length of 5 or 6 inches hanging out the back of the machine. And that is our red thread and upper looper finished. So our yellow thread, which is the lower looper, again is marked on the inside, but the yellow thread is a little bit trickier than the red. We come through our tension disc as we did for the others, and again as with the red there's a little bracket underneath that we have to go behind. It's easy to miss that one out. Just below our first point of red there's a yellow spot, and we're going to clip it into that yellow point. Okay, it's literally directly below the red point. And again we're going to go to the left. So from our first point we're going to come straight to the left and we're going to locate the thread in here. We lift the thread from the bottom so it engages in the little clasp. Like so. We're then going to come right next to it, there's another one, and again we need to lift the thread from the bottom into position. Keep pulling the thread so you've got plenty. Now the next point is on the same arm, but it's tucked away right inside. You can see the yellow spot. So we've zoomed into this almost hidden point here, and again we need to just locate the thread into position from the bottom and click it into place. There we go. So the last bit for the lower looper is to actually thread it into the lower looper arm. Lots of people just take the end and poke it through, which doesn't work. Okay, we need to actually take the thread, take it behind the lower looper, push it all the way down as far as you can go, and it will locate into a little pin. And if you're not sure, give it a tug. Okay, if it slides back out, you haven't gone far enough. You need to go right down to the end, and it is tucked practically underneath where the needles are. So we've got our yellow thread firmly engaged into the lower looper arm, and we can feed the thread through the small hole at the end. Now you'll see that the yellow thread is passing over the top of the upper looper. It's also above the red thread. Okay, don't go underneath this red thread. And then we grab the thread, and as we did before, take it out the back. So you can see our red thread underneath for the upper looper and the yellow lower looper going over the top. Bring the thread across and just tuck it underneath the guide as you did with the red foot. So now we'll carry on with the green thread, which is our right hand needle if we're using both. So through the tension disc, and then there's a small locating tag that we go around. We then come to the left and there's a large thread guide. We go through that, we then come up and you'll see the green dot. So the green dot there, we go over the top and make sure it slots, the thread slots right the way back, not sits on the top, actually goes down into the actual guide. And finally we take the thread down to our right hand needle. Now there's a curly thread guide like you find on a standard sewing machine. Just wrap your thread around once and finally through the eye of the needle, which is really hard to see in this video. As you did with the red and yellow threads, just tuck it underneath. Last but not least is our left hand needle, which is the blue thread, and as before from the tension disc drops straight down and it passes through the same guide that the green thread went through, okay, straight below, and then across to the lower slot and there's a blue dot. Okay, so you've got both the green and the blue thread going through this guide here. Green thread goes in the top slot, blue thread in the bottom slot. So finally down through the small thread guide above the needles, just there, and then thread through the left hand needle. Once more, take the thread out the back, give yourself plenty, and pop it underneath the guide on the foot. That's our machine ready to go. Now, just to check everything's threaded correctly, it's a good idea to take your 4 threads, hold them slightly taut at the back of the machine, and using the hand wheel turning towards you, run it 2 or 3 times just to make sure nothing's getting caught or any horrible noises. You'll hear the thread, but you'll be obviously aware if there's anything nasty happening. And you should start to see a nice thread chain coming out the back. Now, if you remember, I moved the cutting knife out of the way so we could see clearly when we were threading. It's a simple case of pushing to the right and rotating the blade back into position. On occasion it will hit the small piece of plastic here. Just turn your hand wheel very slightly so it clears it, and make sure it locks into position, and we can shut the front back up. So finally we can pop a piece of fabric through and see how it goes. Don't lift the presser foot like you would on a normal machine every time to put your fabric in, as this releases the tension across the top. Instead, lift the front edge of the foot up, slide the fabric in, okay, just so it catches. Now I'm going to go nice and steady, and you'll see the blade, the fabric cut the fabric. You'll see the blade cut the fabric even, and away we go, nice and gentle. Now when we get to the end of a seam, unlike a conventional machine where you would just grab the fabric, pull it out and snip the threads off, quick and easy way is to hold the fabric. We're going to run out of thread chain, okay, just by putting our foot on the presser like so. Then bring the thread chain around the front and just let it go underneath the presser foot where it will get chopped off. And there we have it. And here's the final result. So pretty much straight from the box, settings for tension across the board at 3. You can clearly see the red upper looper. Okay, so this is the top of the fabric running across the top. You can clearly see the light blue line, which is our left needle, the green line, which is our right needle. You can just see on the edge the yellow, which if I flip it over, okay, that's on the reverse, so that's the yellow is our lower looper. And the key is you're trying to get this edge where the upper and lower looper meet exactly on the edge of that piece of fabric. So there we go, that's the end of my first tutorial on the Singer Overlocker. Hope you found it useful. Please feel free to drop me a line, head over to my blog if there's anything you're unsure of, or follow me on social media. And I will do another video tutorial on this machine, and in the next one we'll look at different stitch types and tension issues. So until then, thanks for watching. See you soon.